In today's video, we will discuss compassion-focused therapy, and my special guest here is Kam Giller. Kam, please can you introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
Hi, thank you. I'm a psychotherapist and I practice using compassion-focused psychotherapy and a number of different types of therapies depending on who I'm working with.
Kam, can you tell us what do your clients say to you when they come to you? What kind of help are they seeking? What kind of problems do you see in your day-to-day practice?
So it really varies. It's very much, clients will come with a variety of different issues, with different stresses, relationship issues. It really varies. Low mood, stress, anxiety, stress in the workplace, stress in relationships, and how to manage this and navigate through them.
You're absolutely right. And Kam and I were discussing earlier how people have become more aware of stresses in relationships, about stresses at work, about workload, about manipulation in relationships, about how we tend to please people in the workplace, friends, in relationships, and then how that causes anxiety and depression and various kinds of trauma. And do you want to talk a little bit about how you see it in your therapy practice?
Often clients will come and talk about how stress and anxiety is impacting their everyday. Often it impacts your sleep, of course, because when we're feeling really stressed out, it's much harder to manage our day-to-day life. And that has an impact on our sleep. And for me, I always say that sleep is the foundation to how we manage our day-to-day lives. So if we get that wrong, it impacts everything during the day. So often it's about how can I improve my sleep? How can I manage my temper, my anger issues? How can I stop feeling so overwhelmed when I am in a difficult relationship, be it personal, be it in your professional life? Because of course, overwhelm causes so much anxiety. So using particularly compassion-focused psychotherapy and talking about understanding how we act and how we respond to some of the difficulties can be really helpful.
We talk a lot about compassion-focused therapy, and one can easily assume that compassion means being kind. But is it as simple as just being kind? And what does being kind look like if we were to be kind to others and to be kind to ourselves? So what do you say to your clients in your day-to-day therapeutic practice? How do you use compassion-focused therapy and how does it work?
So absolutely, compassion, is not about being kind. It's a lot more complicated than that. And the definition of compassion developed by Professor Paul Gilbert is very much a sensitivity to suffering and a commitment to try and relieve and prevent that. So what does that mean? A commitment to understanding the causes of our suffering. Why are we feeling distressed? Why are we feeling anxiety? Why are we finding it difficult to communicate with loved ones? And actually having the courage to sit and work through that and understand the causes of suffering. And then the second part to that is understanding ways to relieve and prevent it. What can we do that's different? What can we do so that we don't get caught in that pit of suffering again? And of course, one thing that us humans all have in common is that we will have suffering in our lives. Life is really hard and we often have to deal with difficult things in our lives. And I suppose that for me, understanding how we can go through that journey of life in a more compassionate way. Now, compassion again, and you mentioned about being kinder to others, but we talk about there's this flow of compassion. In this flow of compassion, of course, it's generally quite easy when we receive kindness from others to accept it. And generally, it's quite easy to be kind and compassionate to others. But that flow, the most important part of that flow is learning to be kind to ourselves. How often have, we said to ourselves that critical voice that criticizes us for not doing well in the presentation, not doing well in the interview we had, and really almost being punitive to ourselves, really telling ourselves off. How often have we been harsh to ourselves? Then we would never say the things that we say to ourselves to others. And it's learning about actually how can we be kinder to ourselves and understanding that more.
How does compassion focused therapy work? What are the principles of it?
So the way I introduce CFT, compassion focused psychotherapy, to the way I work is very much beginning to introduce that flow of compassion. For me, the most difficult but the most important flow is learning to be kinder to ourselves. Really get to know that critical voice that we all have. We all have that critical voice. How do we learn to not be so harsh to ourselves? How do we learn not to almost go on that journey of punishment and harshness to ourselves? One of the really important concepts in compassion focused therapy that I talk about quite early on with my clients is something called the 3 systems. When we talk about the 3 systems, it's very much how our brains function, how we make decisions, how we respond in life. We talk about the threat system that we all have. Again, it's there, we need it. It's the fight-flight system in our minds that keeps us protected from danger. Our brain's main purpose is survival. And of course, that fight-flight system switches on if the brain believes there to be any kind of fight-flight. Now, the problem with that is that, of course, if I'm walking in front of a car, my fight-flight comes on and my heart will start racing, I'll become more alert, I'll move out the way of the car, and it's very much needed. However, worrying about tomorrow's presentation and my fight-flight coming on and alerting me to a perceived danger is not helpful. Being in that threat state, I am feeling far more anxious because that is a threat-based emotion. I am feeling far more distressed, and they're not conducive to preparing for tomorrow's interview. What we do, and what's really interesting about the 3 systems, is we talk about each system we can be in releases chemicals into our body, a natural process of cortisol and adrenaline dripping into our bodies, alerting us to danger. Really important if I'm being about to be run over, but not so useful when I'm preparing for tomorrow's exam or interview. What we'd rather be is in that drive system where we're releasing dopamine, where we've got focus, we're feeling this sense of achievement, and that gives us more clarity to be able to focus on tomorrow's interview. Now, they're really important, but the 3rd system that we talk about, the green system, the soothe system, is equally as important. If we can engage in understanding the differences and spending more time in the soothe system, which is your self-care system, that word that we all talk about, but a lot of us do not spend a lot of time in it. On a daily basis, ask yourself, how often do you feel a sense of safeness? Not in that danger sense, but in that sense of calmness. How often in your day do you feel completely present and calm, focused on what you're doing? How often in your day do you feel this real sense of connection with what you're doing, that mindfulness that we all talk about? And sadly, for all of us, it's really tricky to find time to be in that soothe system. The beauty with the 3 systems, if we can spend more time in soothe and drive, which is how we are meant to be in our lives, that threat system becomes much smaller, and it's there if and when we need it, when we're in actual danger. We do not need to be in threat if we've got an interview tomorrow, we've got a presentation tomorrow, we've got something that's going to cause us anxiety, we need to find a way of stepping in to drive and soothe. Of course, we're not going to learn it overnight, but with practice, asking yourself, what system do I feel like I'm in? Do I feel like there's cortisol and adrenaline making my heart beat faster? Or do I feel really focused and calm, where I'm releasing more dopamine? And it's about practice and really understanding and engaging in it.
I really enjoyed that, Kam. I've learned a lot from you about the 3 systems, which is the threat, drive, and soothe. And of course, in my channel, there are lots of videos on the brain science of anxiety or the brain science of trauma, if you wanted to understand a little bit more about that. How do I take something from this and apply it in my day-to-day practice, so I can get that balance between drive and soothe and understand when the threat is coming? So simple techniques that I could use in my day-to-day life.
So I love this part of the 3 systems, and I will teach it to primary school children, so it can be taught. It's such a simplistic way of understanding how these brains of ours work. And in primary schools and with school children, it's very much a really simplistic way of, we will get hoops, and we will get red, blue and green hoops, and we will ask them to stand in a red hoop and imagine you're being chased by a tiger, and how scary is that, and what happens to your heart, and do you feel really anxious, and really get them to visualize and feel that threat system, and then ask them to step into a green hoop where we're going to really calm ourselves down. If we slow our breathing down and we imagine something that makes us feel really safe, sitting in the kitchen watching something nice on telly and seeing mum and dad and feeling really safe, and how that feels, playing with a good friend in the garden, and introducing that, and then almost stepping into the blue hoop where you're engaging in something for children, very much something creative, doing something that's really fun, learning something new, learning a skill, and beginning to teach them that actually we don't need to be in that threat system all the time. We only need it when it's absolutely necessary. With adults, it's very much about, I do a lot of visualization work, so talking about how, often clients will come to me and I draw their threat system and it's huge. And then I ask them what they do. I draw a green circle for soothe and a blue one for drive. What do you do in your day that's in soothe? What do you do in your day that's in drive? Often those two will be really small. Okay, particularly with someone who's depressed and finding it difficult to be motivated. Your drive is small and your soothe is small, and threat is huge. So those 3 systems are not balanced in any way, and we visualize it, we talk about it, and we look at ways to improve and increase that soothe. What can you do tomorrow that gives you that sense of calmness, that allows you to feel more connected with someone? For me, my soothe is walking my dog every morning, cooking. I love cooking. There are many different soothes, and you can get really creative with it. Anything that brings you joy, anything, talking to a loved one, connecting, just having a chat with someone that you really care about, that allows you to feel that connection, that release of serotonin, and that, the oxytocin, those feel-good hormones that we can naturally release into our bodies. And then, of course, that drive, really beginning to feel that sense of satisfaction when you're doing something and you feel really competitive and you feel driven and you want to do it, and it almost gives you that dopamine hit that almost wants you to do it more and more. And just everyday activities can really shift the way we deal with stress and anxiety.
Very well said. So the drive and soothe activities are those that take us away from our stress, get some balance into our lives, and they could be individual to all of us. For example, you like cooking and walking the dog. I might like exercise or actually doing these videos as well. And for someone else, it could be painting, drawing. It depends on what suits anybody's sensibilities, right? I often say to people as well that it could be something you've never tried before, but you may have thought about it and thought, maybe not. Trying something new also regenerates a sense of fulfillment, right?
Absolutely. And and it's interesting you say that, because of course when we try something new, we're not very good at it, and that good old critic that we all have comes online and tells us that we're rubbish and that we'll never be good at it, and why don't you just give up. But it's about not engaging in that, almost like they say with being mindful, letting these thoughts come and go, not stopping them, not shouting at them, but simply being aware of them and then doing it anyway. So almost just letting things come and go.
Yeah. Would you have any messages for their family members? What would you say to them?
So I would talk about the 3 systems, and we use it a lot in family work that we do, because often you can be in your soothe, but the family members or who, your relationship at work or at home, they can be in threat. How do you deal with someone who's in threat and you're trying really hard to stay in that soothe or in that drive, but you're getting pushed into threat because, of course, that person talking to you is in threat? And for me, it's about awareness, understanding, and actually just once your brain engages in that curiosity of, I wonder what's going on for them. They're obviously in threat. How can I stay in soothe and calm things down? Because of course, 2 people being in threat causes more threat.
Yeah, which is why I asked the question as to how do you create an environment where an individual can flourish. It's a nurturing environment and they can practice what you are saying.
I think, I love using the word curiosity, because when others come along and may cause you anxiety and stress, one of the things that can be really helpful is being curious about why are they behaving in that way? I wonder what's going on for them. And almost it gives you a bit of distance, allowing you to stay reasonably calm and manage the situation. It doesn't always work, but it can be really helpful.
Can other therapists also learn from this, take away something into their day-to-day? For example, if I'm a cognitive behavior therapist, do you think there's something to add from compassion-focused therapy?
Yeah, absolutely. I've trained in a number of different techniques, and what I see is that they all overlap. Very much that element of the flows of compassion. Of course, we, in CBT, in cognitive behavioral therapy, we talk about, being more self-led, being more intuitive about what is going on for others, what is going on for ourselves, that relationship we have with clients, so they all overlap in their own ways. In internal family systems, a different type of therapy I use, it's very much about understanding our self-led energy. And when we talk about our self-led energy, we talk about the C's of self-led energy. And the first one is compassion. The second one is curiosity. So dealing with decisions or distress with this feeling of compassion. How do you engage in that feeling of calmness, of compassion, of curiosity, of connection, all those wonderful C's of clarity, making a decision where you feel like it's the right decision, and it often takes courage, but you're using all those wonderful self-led energies that we're born with. But of course, through that journey of life that we all go through, things happen, distress happens, trauma happens, and it gets hidden away.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Life does happen to all of us, to the best of us. So I often ask my guests for 3 top tips that you would like people to take away and practice as of today.
So I always start with compassion. So learning to be a bit kinder to yourself. When the critic comes online and tells you you're not very good, tells you, just give up, you're useless, just simply being curious about it. and not engaging in it, but being curious about what is going on. The second top tip for me is very much about the basics. And you start with the basics of getting your sleep right, moving, getting out, getting fresh air, really basics, moving every day, and nutrition, eating well, just looking after yourself makes life a lot more manageable. There are really fancy techniques and therapies that we can all do, but if we don't get that foundation right, it's really hard.
You're right. Structure, routine, sleep hygiene, healthy nutrition. These are the basics, right?
Yeah.
And the third top tip?
So the third top tip is very much about something you mentioned earlier, doing something that gets you outside of your comfort zone.
Curiosity.
Trying a new skill, doing something different, something that makes you feel a little bit uncomfortable, but actually you have the courage to do it, and just trying it. And also, of course, you might not be very good at it at the beginning, but just being kind to yourself and trying anyway.
Thank you so much, Kam. It was such a pleasure to have you. We've had such good information from you, and I'm sure we'll all start practicing compassion, curiosity, and get some structure into our lives after today. Thank you very much.